All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining on Wednesday, October 1st. Will AI replace pricing professionals or make them stronger? Today we got Mark Stiving from Impact Pricing, Marcos Rivera from Pricing IO, Stephen Forth from Ibbaka here, and Augustin Manchon from Manchon Company. Today we're going to go through basically what a lot of people in the pricing professional world are thinking. What's going on, what's happening, what's going to happen, what's happening right now. And if AI is going to replace people and their jobs, or basically going to make everyone stronger. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of intro to Marcos, and then he can do a little bit of himself there, and then Mark, Augustin, and Stephen.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Liam, for the introduction. Really excited to talk about this topic today. It is coming up in all the circles around. I talked to a lot of different companies, and I can't wait to share my thoughts. I'm Marcos Rivera. I'm the CEO of Pricing IO. Been doing this for a few decades now. I focus mainly in the technology and SaaS space, and I previously owned pricing and packaging for one of the largest PE firms in the world, Vista Equity Partners. Also published a book and run a podcast on the subject.
Yeah, my name is Mark Stiving. Most of you probably know me. I host the Impact Pricing podcast, written a few books. All I ever do is study and teach people about pricing. So it's one of my favorite topics.
My name is Augustin Manchon. I guess what I will bring, I have 35 years experience in pricing, but what I think I'm going to bring to this panel today will be, maybe because I'm the only European in the team, a little angle with a different emphasis. Maybe the strategy side because of my past in various consulting firms, and possibly the governance and things like this that have been developing strongly, and on which I'm preparing a book actually for pricing. And maybe another angle will be the cross industry. I know we're focusing on SaaS, but sometimes it's important to put it in perspective.
Thank you all. Stephen Forth. I am co-founder and CEO of Ibbaka. Ibbaka is a pricing consulting firm. We compete very happily with Marcos. It's good to have good competitors. And I collaborate closely with Marcos and Mark and Augusta and a few other fellow travelers to really try to move our understanding of pricing, how to do pricing, and the impact pricing has on organizations forward. So this is I think, a very important topic, as Liam said. A lot of people are thinking about it and worrying about it, and I think it's a tremendous opportunity. So we're going to have a very open conversation today. We don't have a lot of pre-scripted content. Maybe some sparks will fly. We'll see. But yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, and everyone, we're going to start off with two polls. So very quick, we're going to chat while we do it. So the first poll, how often are you using AI today? So we're going to launch that right now. And yeah, anyone wants to riff off on that while everyone's collecting their submissions? We're going to do both of them back to back.
I'll just say to kick, I'd like to hear from Mark, Augusta, and Marcos about this. But I'll just answer for myself. In my case, my AI is always on. I've probably got anywhere from 3 to 5 tabs with different AIs open. And it is my constant thought partner, stimulus, fact checker. Some people may be skeptical about that, but I think the provenance on these systems has improved dramatically over the last 3 months. Yeah, I'm an always-on guy. Use it on my phone quite a bit too. But Mark?
I would have said I'm an always-on guy, Stephen, but I know that I'm nowhere near as always on as you are. So I'll go with several times a day. But I use it constantly. ChatGPT and Perplexity are always up, and I have very frequent conversations with it. What I find most fascinating is that I know that it lies to me. I know that it gives me horrible answers, but I think it's no different than if I'm having a conversation with someone who doesn't understand pricing. And so it's like, yeah, I just have to judge the content that I get back out of it.
Augusta?
I am exactly always on guy, and it's been now for a year and a half, 2 years. And like you, I have several sessions open. In fact, I have two sessions on my computer, usually one or two on my cell phone. And I feel like a chess player, who plays different games. The game is going so fast that the only constraint is my own capacity to think about the next question. But it's many hours per day, every day of the week, personal and professional.
Yeah,
Marcos?
and I'll round off. I'm also a little closer to Mark Stiving's camp, so I do use it. I've changed the way I fundamentally write notes and search for things. I use AI all for that. I don't do my old Googling or Apple Notes anymore. It's all in AI. And I do frequently, like you, Stephen, have conversations with it and ask questions. I push it. I tell it to stop lying to me, just like you, Mark. We go back and forth, and it does help me as a stimulant as well. So I do use it pretty often, and I'm changing my habits by the week as I continue to adopt. So pretty exciting stuff for me.
And what do you guys think is the top choice out of all these? Always on, several times a day, at least once a day.
My guess is several times a day is where I'm at.
All
Yeah.
right.
I
Yeah.
would
Okay.
consider.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
you go. Yeah. Yeah. Good job.
Okay, Marcos, you win the first prize. I'll send something to you later today.
All right. And then number 2, which AI tools are you using? And you guys can check all that apply on this one.
Okay.
The thing that I've found super exciting over the last, I guess since March or so, is vibe coding.
Mm.
And Marcos, I'm going to suggest that companies like ours, um, by this time next year, most of our deliverables will be in the form of custom coded Vibe apps. We're not going to be delivering spreadsheets and PowerPoints as much. We'll still do that, but much more. We're going to be delivering AI tools that encapsulate our recommendations and pricing strategies and pricing designs. So, and I'm going to go on the record and say that when we have another webinar in, let's say September of 2026, we'll be talking about how we're using vibe coding for deliverables, and all of the leading consultants and consulting firms are going to need and want to be doing that.
Yeah, I'm gonna high five you on that one there, mainly because I think the barrier to entry for vibe coding is pretty low for even non-techies like myself. I've been able to whip up pretty easy apps. We did a bake-off between Lovable, Base 44, a few others, and to me, it's astonishing how quickly they can pick up, build something that's working. And this is just the tip of the iceberg for us. And so I think there's going to be a lot of customization, I think the delivery form will change as vibe coding takes on, in my opinion.
I have to ask Marcos, who won the bake-off?
Believe it or not, Base 44 beat Lovable for us. We like Lovable, but we just found we could do a lot more faster with Base 44. Just an opinion.
Interesting.
I'm not endorsing them. It just worked for us.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So guys,
Yeah.
I find the
I'm
biggest
going to share the results just real quick.
Yeah.
Go for it, Mark. Don't
I
want me
was
to
gonna
stop
say, I
you.
find the biggest problem that I have with AI today is that I don't know what all I can do with it. So I feel like I'm leaving stuff on the table, or I'm just not using it as well as I could be. And so listening to you guys talk about vibe coding, I sit around and think, well, what would I create? I mean, why do I need to do vibe coding? And so that's to me the big fear.
Yeah, I will say one of the first areas we were doing is, and I'm just going to be very transparent here, is like we're trying to get rid of as many Google Sheets, Excel sheets, and other things as possible. And so we scour, look for things that we feel we could replace that in a something that we can use in a repeatable way. And it's really just a bunch of prompting in the back end to drive and spit out what you want on the other side. So as we got better with prompting, we got naturally started opening the door for vibe coding. But it's really just killing all the old ways we used to do things. That's what I look at as low-hanging fruit.
Well, what I
Steve.
found the most striking progress has been the memorization of me. My favorite AI knows me and knows me now for a year and a half, 2 years, and is able to shape based on my competence, on my past history, on my work, on my deliverables, on my tone of voice. And that allows me to go much deeper. That was not really possible a few months ago. Now it is. And therefore, I feel a little inclined to not switch around and try new tools other than for specific research and specific challenges. But I'm not as sophisticated as you guys. There's so much to be done and there's so much to learn.
So Mark, I've got an offer for you. So not for the current book that you're doing, not for the AI book, but for the context-driven pricing book that I think you're also working on.
Yep.
I'll work with you to vibe code an app that supports that book.
Okay, let's do it.
All
Okay.
right.
So we started to talk about this already, but let's just go around the loop here. And what are AI tools are people using today within this group of very seasoned pricing experts and practitioners? Why don't we start with Augustin?
Sure. I'm not going to talk about tools, if that's what you want to talk about, but about applications. I want to go into pricing, not so much about technology. And what I found, and both myself as a consultant as at my clients, sometimes my clients are ahead of me, sometimes I need to teach them, is the amazing areas in which you can apply pricing. You can now do segmentation going from a few personas to thousands of them to make it a live product, a live tool. Competitive intelligence used to be something that clients would focus on four or five competitors just to handle it, and now you can do hundreds of them. It's a live dashboard that's continuously changing. Experimentation as well used to be limited and risky and short term and all that, and now it's really at scale. It's like a multi-armed bandit that's testing all the time different things. So it's a continuous experiment. But the last thing, the thing that's really changing in my mind, I'm switching maybe the topic, is that you have so many things that you can do. Now, as a team of two or three, you can act as a team of 30. You need to orchestrate. All of a sudden, you didn't need to orchestrate two or three people. Now you need to orchestrate a team of 30 agents or 30 collaborators and new issues and new phenomenons that I'm sure we'll deal with that a little later. But it's a multiplying effect. So I know that the theme of the day is, are we cutting the needs for people? Yes, absolutely, for some tasks. But there's an explosion of new possibilities. And frankly, let's face it, the teams of pricing has always been limited, two or three people, whatever. Just a quick anecdote. When I started consulting at Accenture many years ago, my first job was at Accenture. When I arrived, I said, how big is the team of pricing? 5,500 people, pricing and licensing, three buildings near Seattle. I was impressed. That has changed. But with three people, you can do probably the equivalent today.
Yeah, Mark?
So the only tools I use besides Grammarly, of course, is ChatGPT and Perplexity. But I think what's more interesting is how I use it today. Because not only do I use it to have conversations with and learn and study, but when I'm working with my clients, I actually use it to create the value architecture that that I talk about a lot. And so the question becomes, what are the problems that our customers are trying to solve? And there's a series of prompts or a series of queries or ways to talk to it that says, hey, here's how we can dig out a value architecture for specific clients or for specific customers. And so I've actually created the tool. I create a custom GPT now for every client. I put my own content in there, and then I put a bunch of content about their product in there or their company in there. And I give them the prompts and say, hey, go run these prompts and go ask you questions, but don't trust it, right? You've got to use judgment.
Sorry, that brings up a question for all three of you. Something that we are thinking hard about, and I think I can say we're struggling a bit with it, Ibbaka, is how are you managing prompts? So, I think all of us use, I would guess I have around 100 prompts that I use regularly or tweak regularly. Most of them exist either just in Perplexity or ChatGPT. Maybe a third of them are well codified in a spreadsheet, and maybe 10% are in our AI middleware system, which is a system called Vellum. But and Marcos, we'll let you answer this question in a moment, but maybe we'll go to Marcos first. But Marcos, as you answer this, can you let us know how is Pricing.io collaborating and managing prompts? Because to me, that's an emerging issue for pricing organizations. But Marcos.
Yeah, so we started last year. We built an AI committee, and so we are actively working on this as well. We started with using GPT to help us refine our Python code. We've been using Python code for years with a lot of our data analyses and the different things that we look at. And so that was the first set of prompts that were coming in. And then we started extending those prompts. And so we created the prompt repository. We even started using Magical a little bit to pull a little more information with that cool little browser extension. And we've been able to not just accumulate in our repository and library of prompts, but we also work on each other's prompts as well. We extend them as well. We found that different folks on the team had different styles of prompting, and we're like, hey, I love how you added some extra parameters there. I love how make sure it shows you your thinking and checks for there. And so we've been swarming on some of the more highly used prompts, which are usually around things like competitive studies, deeper research items, things like that. And so I'd say we have not quite 100, but maybe approaching 100, Stephen. But I'd say there's about 20 to 30 that we really work together to refine. That's how we've been approaching the prompt game.
I think that's great. But Augusta and Mark, do you have a systematic way of managing your prompts?
I guess it's twofold. On one end, there is the tested prompts that you want to refine and update and build memory on and get better at it, while the AI itself is getting better. But the other one is, frankly, expanding the use of prompts. I'm using prompts for different applications that I didn't know a week ago or a month ago that even AI will be relevant. And then I combine them. And what I like now for example, in ChatGPT is that you can organize by projects, by GPTs, there's a hierarchy of things. It used to be just a simple chatbot. Now it's more complex. And I'm not 100% sure how memory works across different pieces of that puzzle, but at least in the areas that you can control and refresh the memory and remind them because they do hallucinations, you can go quite deep and quite broad. So the breadth of it is astonishing. It's really astonishing. I'm using it for many more things than I thought it would be, and the quality of it has improved.
Can I just do a reality check here? How many people are paying for the high-end $200 subscriptions for any of the services? So it seems like there's the free $20, $200, and an emerging $2,000 price point. Is anybody other than me using the $200? And I've got the $200 Perplexity, but I do it personally because I could not convince the finance committee at Ibbaka that everyone should go up to 200. But is anyone else using any of the high-end ones?
I tested it. I tested the Claude one, and my team actually thought I did a nice job from a deep research perspective. I did it for about 3 months, but the one that we pay for the most is that $25 team chat GPT version. That's the one that we're most actively in.
Yeah, yeah, us as well. I haven't been able yet to make the argument to get everyone at Ibbaka on the $200 Perplexity program.
Can you make a 30-second business case for the 200 version versus 20?
Yeah, that's only $180 a month. That's trivial. The value that a person is creating, and
What about the value as opposed to the
yeah,
cost?
yeah, yeah, and the best players should have the best tools. And I think as leaders, it sends a really strong signal that we are investing not just in AI, but we're investing in our people.
Augustine, let me make the case for you, if I may.
Okay, good.
Probably last week, for the first time, I started playing with agent mode on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And that gives you the ability to go out and query your Gmail account or your Google Calendar or a lot of other sources. But every time you do a query or a prompt that goes out to grab data from some source that's not in ChatGPT's database,
Yeah.
then it charges you, I'm going to say the word a credit. And on the $20 plan, I think we get 30 credits a month. And I found those credits go down really fast.
Credit-based pricing, topic of Ibbaka's next webinar.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm probably close to that limit, so I think it's a matter of days before I get to the 200 version. But I don't know
Mhm.
about the 2000 version. Let's continue.
Yeah, let's go on to the next slide, Liam. So this is, I think, what Augustin really wants to talk about is how is AI being used today in pricing work? Want to hear from all of you, of course, but I think Augustin has been really working hard on this with a number of people across Europe. So including our friend Michael Mansard at Zuora. So Augustin, where do you see as AI having the biggest impact today? Is it at the strategy level? Is it more at the design level? Is it at optimization, deal pricing, or
I
more
yeah.
the RevOps level? But yeah, go ahead.
I see it really at two levels, and frankly, it's a struggle to keep it a balance between the two. On one end, you have everything you can automate and do more of, and that's all the things I mentioned earlier, segmentation, some of them are here. Packaging, you can refine it. The pricing model, you can challenge it. The optimization, you can refine it. You can do that across the board. And you have to set up the agents or the GPTs or whatever you're using, or just simple prompts to do all of this in a larger scale and speed and faster and everything. But on the other hand, what I'm starting to see, and as a strategist originally, I'm a bias to that, is what choices you have to make, what limits you are pushing, what boundaries you may or may not cross. And I find clients, and now more and more myself, having to deal with those issues. Are you sure what data, for example, in Europe, where is data stored? Is it in the US? Is it in Europe? Frankly, now since January 6th this year, as you may know, it's an issue. It's an issue. Sovereignty is an issue. So that's, again, a new topic for pricing. Another one would be equity and regulation. In Europe, it's very high. So all of a sudden, you have to deal with am I able to explain everything I've been doing? So you can be extremely efficient on one end, and now you have to be more and more explaining it and frankly defending it in some instances, either in advance, ideally, or after the fact, which is not ideal either. So it crosses everything. So I would say probably the biggest application is strategy. Another example just to finish, you can have tools that will optimize, and they tend to optimize the short term, the immediacy, the opportunity that's at hand. You can act on it right away. And balancing that versus the long term, is that the right thing? Is that the right thing? It's based on history. Everything on AI is based on history at the end of the day. And your decision is to make, not just explaining the last quarter and make it optimized for the near term, but what are you going to do for the next year? What are you going to do longer term? How are you going to balance objectives? And that should be, frankly, what most of the time of a pricing strategist should be going forward, as opposed to the actual orchestration of the tools, which will take a lot of time short term as a transition, but not the dominant time.
Marcos, do you want to step
I,
in here?
I gotta agree with a lot of that. I think one of the things that I maybe will push a little bit on here is, in looking at this list, where I'm seeing the application of AI for the spectrum of pricing and packaging. I do find it from a strategy perspective, it's getting better. GPT-5 has taken a leap forward versus the previous versions, I think, in recommending strategy. From a packaging perspective, though, I still find it leaning too much on trying to revert everything into good, better, best. And that just irritates the hell out of me. There's so many more ways and creative ways to unlock revenue than just good, better, and best. And so I do think there's some work to be done there. I do find that where I think it's going, interestingly, I see more and more applications with RevOps and sales support. And I'll give you just a very short 10-second story here. I was at a go-to-market conference recently, and they were just a plethora of these, AI agents and SDR agents, but they're using them now for role playing and training sales reps and training BDRs and SDRs. They could also be used to train and role play for pricing and pricing changes as well, reacting to different value propositions, reacting to different pricing structures and levels. And I thought that was a really interesting emerging use case of instead of having to, go out and get 10 customers in the raw and pull them in from the field, can you actually train your own avatar using AI to react to pricing? I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I think that's going to be a big trend. But Mark, what are you seeing?
So I guess I'll take the naysayer's role as usual. Um,
You like that role, huh? You like
I
that
do.
role.
I do. So first off, we're often asked the question, is pricing an art or a science? And I think that really describes what goes on with AI today. And if you could say AI is probably going to take over most of the science side of pricing. And so we as pricing people need to be more on the art side. And so what does that actually mean? That actually means that we're going to be using judgment. We've got to be figuring out what's happening in our world and trying to create creative or um, unique solutions. Now, Augustine said, and I agree with this completely, AI is built on history. And I don't believe, God, this is where I'm going to get in trouble. I don't believe that pricing people are really good at their jobs, right? I think that every pricing job is different, every industry is different, every company is different, and it's so unique across the board that it's really hard to take AI and even if they knew all of this information to say, hey, here's how to go build a product structure or a value architecture or a market segment or and so I think it's so hard and so we can't rely on AI to do that. That's the art side of this, right? And so that's where I come down on this is that we as pricing people, we get to the fun part of the job, right? The other side was the boring part,
Yes.
right?
Mark?
Let me add a comment here. I think to extend what you're saying, because history, because actual nitty-gritty work has dominated historically, it was hard to do more than that, to be better than that what you're describing. Now, for the first time, you can do a lot of that and now focus on more things. So I already talked about going from the present to the future. Another example of application is scenario planning, and I know Stephen is very hot on that. All of a sudden, you can think of possibilities, of scenarios, of personas, and Marcos talked about specific personas you can react and act and play with, but you can even think that, and you can bring that to the board level. So because of how we are trained in pricing, we should be able to use those skills now to apply it to a better type of work, as you are saying, Mark. And all of a sudden bring that. We've been dreaming for years, for decades, to bring pricing to the boardroom on a more frequent basis. I think now we can. I think now we have the tools to do it, like scenario planning is one of them, but also to talk about possibilities. And when Marco says we need to go beyond certain pricing metrics or pricing models, why not bring them with meat behind them to discuss with CEOs? That's a real imperative because the same way we're dealing with minor pricing issues in the past, now we have to deal with bigger pricing issues going
Yep.
forward.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that. Just to jump right in as well, Mark, I think there's a spectrum of pricing professionals out there. Some are really good at what they do, some are not. I think they would relish the opportunity to move a lot of this,
Yeah.
mechanical science. And I do think the AI supercharges the science to feed the art at the end of the day, right? So now we're able to think a lot more with better context, better information, and you noodle on those really important, impactful things. I do think, though, to your point, it may expose those that really don't
Yeah.
have a lot of strategic perspective or muscle behind them. And they're going to be in for a rude awakening because they can't lean on the data crunching anymore. That stuff's going away. I think those days are numbered. It's what do you do with the data? Why does it matter? What does it mean? How do you take it forward? Those are going to be the big ones. That's going to separate, I think, top professionals from the ones that are going to have to, I don't know, find something else to do.
Yep.
So Mark, you're a writer. Actually, I want to note that I am the only, well, Liam and I are the only people on this session that have not written books. Uh, but Mark, you're a writer. You're a creative guy. Do you find that the AI helps you become more creative, or does it sort of dumb down the creativity and make things blander?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. If I'm sorry, every time I start a new blog, but by the way, I used to not do this, right? But nowadays, every time I start a new blog, a new chapter, a new anything, I start out with saying to AI, "Hey, I'm going to write a chapter on this topic. Give me an outline." And it's usually horrible, right? But it's a great starting point, and there's no doubt they came up with two or three things that I hadn't thought about before I started the chapter or the blog. And so after a lot of conversations and tweaking and et cetera, there is no doubt in my mind that the writing comes out much better than had I not used AI to do that.
Yeah.
And
But,
it's for my writing of the book. I'm using usually I used to be writing small things with 2 or 3 iterations, you know, with or without AI. Now it's about 30 iterations. There's a chapter in the book that I've rewritten 5 times. Now I would have never dreamt of rewriting the same chapter 5 times in the past. But now I can because you can implement some of those changes at scale while focusing on the idea, on the angle, on the example, on the challenge that you're not satisfied with, that you want to keep on working. So all of a sudden, the ability to write, the number of words is the same at the end, but the thinking into it has dramatically increased. I don't know what's your experience, Mark, but for me, I feel really proud of what version number 30.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you, Augustin. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a big
yeah,
high five there too. My editor, she basically, I like the way she put it. She says it helps you focus on the point, not on the pros. And so if you're able to do that and really dial in what you're really trying to say, the message, the punch, I like Augustine saying the angle that you're trying to take. That's the key. I think that also creates, I think, just better, more creative thinking. So I'm in the camp of it can unlock creativity if used the right way. Of course, there's always lazy ways and use cases to do that, but I'm on the unlock side.
But in the end, I'm sure all of us agree with this. It takes the art of saying this makes sense. This is a good flow. We should be saying this or we shouldn't be saying that, right? And that's exactly what pricing people have to do. Take away the fact that we're writing books. They've got to be writing strategies.
And I think the way you said the first attempt is horrible, as you said. Of my 30 iterations, the first 5 are horrible as well. They are so
Mhm.
average, so common, so generic, and but it helps start. And then you're really proud of an idea, and your idea actually goes further. So it's your art, it's your idea,
Yeah.
but pushed to the limit. I'm surprised, by the way, what AI can do at the limit, at the frontier. There are some ideas that, for example, I have a section on my book that's prospective. At first, I said, what can we do but hyper personalization, for example, in 2 years from now? And I'm amazed by and then triggers thoughts. I talk to my clients, and a week later, I try new possibilities. And I don't know at the end what I found, if it is possible because of AI or possible because of the thinking of people. I don't know anymore, but it's a new possibility that didn't exist a week before. So for that, I think we should say kudos for that
Yeah.
process.
yeah. We could discuss this endlessly, and no doubt we will over the coming years. But let's go on to the next slide, Liam. So this is just some quick poll results. So back in the middle of September, when we started planning this webinar, we did a little LinkedIn poll when we asked the question, what impact will AI have on pricing jobs? And the overwhelming percentage of people, over 80%, said they are going to transform pricing. The next most common answer was that it will diminish pricing roles. There's still around 5% who think it's going to have little impact. And then is a small number, just under 4%, that said it will eliminate pricing roles. When I do these polls, I do them across multiple groups. And it can be kind of interesting to compare the group. So my personal, I have a fairly large following on LinkedIn, but it's very diverse because I'm active in design, I'm active in pricing, I'm active in investment. Uh, so this is the area where transform was really strong. It's interesting that the pricing people, that's where you start seeing people say, it's not going to have much impact. Still a small number, but I think there are some people who are in, if I can say, denial. But then when you go over to the industry focus, and here this
Yeah.
is mostly from
Yeah.
the Artificial Intelligence Exchange group, which is a huge group, and from the SAS group, which is also very large. Um, you have more people that think it's going to diminish the role of pricing. So these are the business people, right? These are the people that are consuming pricing advice. And still, transform is the strongest, but there's a little bit more skepticism. There's a little bit more eliminate or diminish than in the other groups. But given this, I think that we're talking about the right thing, which is how pricing is going to transform pricing roles. I'm sorry, how AI is going to transform pricing roles. So let's go on and explore that a bit. Oops. Sorry, let's go. No, Liam, next. I think maybe we duplicate the slides. Next slide after this. So what do people think? Is AI impacting pricing today? So is this something, are we talking about now? Or are we talking about the future? And I want to just remind everyone of Vancouver science fiction writer William Gibson's famous quote, "The future is here, it's just not evenly distributed." So, Marcos, you employ a team of really great pricing experts. Um, is AI changing how you think about your company and team composition and what skills? And is it changing hiring practices? And you and I think, are the guys that actually employ people in this space. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're 20 some odd folks, and there was a distribution of worry and skepticism on AI, especially on the team that were focused mostly on the analytics side, like I mentioned earlier. But what's been happening actually is, again, I think quite different, and it surprised me that it's already happening this soon, which is using the tool to really to crystallize the thinking and improve the quality of the deliverable. And so, actually, one analyst came to me just a week ago, and he was really thankful that he is no longer restructuring data to get it in the right format to analyze it. So I'm telling, you know, Python, Tableau, like those are the ways we used to do things. We don't do that anymore. Everything is now done through AI. And he's like, man, I could really sit and think. And those were his words. I could just really sit and think about the storyline behind this data and how to articulate that. And that's important, especially to understand your audience. You have to know where the audience's sensitivities are. How do you describe what's happening and how do you lead them down a path? How do you get alignment across people? That's still really tough stuff to do. And my team can now focus more on doing those things than the actual work on the pricing side. So I think it is shifting that responsibility, but it didn't happen overnight. It took a little while for us to trust what the AI would do, and then also just to I would say, re-energize those muscles on the other end. So I don't want to mislead anybody. That happens with the snap of a finger or overnight. But over, I think, a course of several months, you could see some notable change in how your team members spend their time and how that impacts and improves quality of your deliverable.
So, Marcus, I'm going to ask the hard question that many people on this call are worried about. Are you going to be hiring more people, fewer people, different people, or about the same because of AI?
Yeah. I'm going to say different people. And the reason being is because now we're going to be looking for folks with the skill coming in. We built it ourselves. So this is kind of happening over the last couple of years. So it's all organic. But folks coming in I want them to have that skill and have that sort of point of view and thinking on how to leverage and do more. But there's another air person that I'm hiring. It's not even really a person, but it's the agent. Throw tomatoes at me all you want, right? I actually think there are some agents that could do certain tasks for us, very specific things that I don't need people to do anymore, and those people can run with others. And so the metric that I'm trying to move forward as sort of a business builder and having a team is my revenue per FTE is going up, and I want it to continue to climb. And that's where I think AI can be delegated certain things that 2 years, 3 years ago, we could not. And so I'm taking advantage of that.
So Mark, thank you, Marcus. Mark and Augustin, you guys look at a lot of pricing teams. work with a lot of pricing teams. What are you seeing? Same question. Is AI going to lead to more pricing positions, fewer pricing positions, changed pricing positions, or will it have relatively little impact? Mark, why don't you go first?
Sure. I first off understand I work mostly with small and mid-sized businesses, and I think that those companies don't spend very much time trying to figure out how they're going to use AI to fix pricing. Right. I mean, we're back to the issue that I said earlier, where I don't think pricing people are good at what they do. And by the way, I apologize to all pricing people for that comment. And the reason I believe that is even back when I was a pricing person at a company, everybody in the company thought pricing is what we do. And pricing is so much bigger than whatever it is that you do. And so that's why I say that. And people aren't trying to say to themselves, well, how do I get bigger? How do I expand my knowledge base? And so I am not seeing people using AI to try to do this. Many people are using AI, in a way similar that we are, where we're asking it questions and having conversations and talking to it. But I don't see them changing their roles today. Although I think that every one of them should be diving in as deep as they can, because otherwise their job's going to go away and be replaced by someone else who can do this.
Augusta?
I
So
think I'm
sorry,
gonna I'm gonna be
I love, sorry, Augusta, just Mark, I love that. You need to be using AI to make yourself and your understanding and the world you interact with bigger. I'm paraphrasing you a bit, but
Yep.
that I think that's the headline point for this whole session. But Augustin.
Yeah, I'm gonna wear two different hats for this question. One, I'm gonna switch from North American to European, and the other one, for just a few seconds, I'm gonna switch from pure pricing, which is your question, to the whole business. And let me start with that one. I really truly believe that what we're gonna see in the next few months and years is gonna be a huge reshuffling of jobs. There will be thousands and potentially millions of jobs that will be affected. Let's face it, it's going to be hard to protect old tasks that should be AI modified or replaced. That's a given. Maybe sounds scary for a lot of people, but I think that's happening. A lot of jobs need to be replaced. Having said that, there will be a new jobs and new things, except it will take longer, whatever. Let me break that parenthesis. So in that ocean of huge changes, I think going from three to two people in pricing is not going to be the main issue at all. So to some extent, we are sort of protected just because of the size and because of the importance of what we do. And now let me wear the European hat. European hat. Fortunately, Europe might be a little bit more protected versus what I just said, because Europe thinks more about barriers and obstacles and guidance and guardrails and regulations right now than on the effectiveness of AI. I went to a conference last week. I was only there for an hour. And which panel do I see on stage? A philosopher, a regulator, and only one guy who was actually using AI effectively, and everybody else was piling on him and criticizing and arguing and everything. So right now, that's what dominates in Europe. It's good because it's going to be a head start in regulation that everybody will need and governance and all the positive sides. That's why I'm writing a book about it. But on the other hand, it obscures the possibilities. So back to your question about productivity and what will change. I think, yes, there will be a huge productivity thing, especially if you don't change the type of tasks that Mark was talking about earlier and Marcos. But going forward, I think we need to go into multiplying and doing more things. Really, either more strategic or more quantity or both, but that needs to change and will change. And one last thing I will say, actually, I had that advice yesterday. I said, because AI still doesn't quite have a true champion in many companies, I'm talking about mid-sized companies and smaller companies like Mark, why not the pricing guy be that AI person? You don't have to be the best expert in technology, like Steven, I'm sure he is. But even without being as technology oriented, you can think strategically and ask the right questions and set it up the right way, which is everybody now recognizes is what makes a difference. It's not just one more experiment, is what are we doing it for and what's the value of what we're doing. And who is better positioned than the pricing person to do that? Now, having said that, Mark said so. A lot of people, I'm sorry to say that to the audience, a lot of people are not quite equipped. Because the task was so tactical, you had tactical people dominating in that profession. Going forward, frankly, a lot of people are going to be challenged. So they either need to be replaced or need to be upgrading themselves, or frankly, everybody should be upgraded, and why not start here?
And
Great.
Stephen, can I add, by the way, I love that, Augustine. Can I add one more comment that I think is probably the driver in my head as to what we should be doing? Right. I
Hmm.
think today what pricing people think about is pricing. And what they really should be thinking about is value.
Mhm.
And if we could all take our mindset and shift it, instead of thinking about what should we be doing as a company and how do we set prices and what are we going to do, we suddenly take our entire mindset and shift it to how do our customers perceive and receive value from our products? And if we spend all of our time thinking about that, A, AI is going to help us try to figure that out. And B, we become the coordinating factor inside the company, right? We help marketing, we help sales, we help finance because we actually know the customers and how they think better than anybody else. And nobody else thinks this way. What an amazing opportunity we have.
But Mark, everybody needs to go through your training because it's so much easier to deal with pricing and price points and metrics and GBBs and all that than to deal with value, with potentials, with the customer mindset, with things that are intangibles. We're talking, I mean, I did a post this year about Hermes and LVMH, and I talk about luxury. So for once, I had to dive directly into luxury. Frankly, I'm not crazy about it. I don't like dealing with it. But
Yeah.
I found 7 dimensions of luxury that are not in a typical product. I got the most posts. Everybody loves to talk about that, but very few actually, like you, deal with the components of it, the quantification of it, the communication of it, the sharing of it. And that's what I know Stephen and Mark, at least, and Marcus as well, deal with every day. But how many people are agile with value, like you said, versus the nitty-gritty pricing? And that's the challenge that we all have. We need to upgrade that profession to be able to do it. Frankly, it's not just pricing people who should deal with values, the whole company. But if pricing
Absolutely.
people should be at least the orchestrators, we should own the grammar of it, the language, the terminology of it. Maybe not the ideas, maybe not the push for it, but at least the language.
I love that. I love that. Owning the narrative is what we say as well. I think that makes a lot of sense. There is a something that Steven said, I want to say a few months ago, Steven, and I'm going to quote you, is you said there's really not a lot of value-based pricing going on, is really what you said, right? And I'm like, damn, he's right. He's right. Like when you really think about what's happening and how companies are pricing and exchanging value, there's less value-based pricing going on than meets the eye, or at least optically. And AI will allow us to do that. And so to tie in with what Mark was saying, getting closer to value is really the name of the game. I remember Patrick Campbell, I remember from Price Intelligently, always used to say, the one closest to the customer wins. I think the one closest to value wins. And that could come from, series of customers, it can come from data, it can come from context. AI allows you to handle so much more, not just structured data, but unstructured data as well, a lot more than we
Yes.
used to be able to do. That value to me is very unstructured. Like it's very nuanced, it's different, it changes. Once you think you nailed it, it shifts. And so I think AI can really be an ally in helping you get closer to value. And that's how you need to be thinking about it versus it taking over my pricing job.
One quick addition to the rules of pricing is that, and I've always fought that fight for many years, but frankly, a little alone because of my role of multi-sector, is taking an idea from an industry and applying it to another one. Now, with that technology and that unstructured thing that you're saying, and I'm sure you find that, Mark, in your educations for people, is that you can step back and think as if you were from a different industry. And we know that subscription has invaded all industries. So that's one way. But there are many more ways that ideas in one area can feed ideas into other areas. And now with AI, you can do that.
I almost wonder, hearing that, if credit-based pricing models are going to invade all industries the way that they're invading AI and SaaS. But we'll see. Let's go on to the next slide, though, Liam. So again, as preparation for this webinar, Ibbaka did a little bit of research, and the approach we took to this research I thought was a little bit interesting. I know that several of you are reading You Reshuffle book by Sanjit Paul Chowdhury. Excellent book. I know Mark's reading it. I'm not sure if Augustin or Marcos are, but if you're not, I encourage you to do so. And Chowdhury has a really interesting approach to understanding the impact of AI. So he said the first thing you have to ask is, what constraints does AI remove, and how does that change the structure of work? So that's the first thing we did, and I'm happy to share the prompts we used to do this work with people who are interested. But it said that the roles that are going to be at risk are roles that are around data analysis and pattern recognition, market research and competitor monitoring, financial modeling, and statistical modeling. And then go on to the next slide, please, Liam. And then the next thing that Chowdhury recommends you do in Reshuffle is think, okay, when you remove one set of constraints, what new constraints emerge? So we use that to frame up a conversation about what are the emerging pricing jobs, what are the emerging AI-based pricing jobs? We used a couple of different AIs to generate this table here. Just going to ask our panel here, do any of these resonate with you, and are you seeing any of these jobs emerge? And again, I'm going to ask Marcos to kick it off because he's probably the person that's hiring these people or training these people or transforming these people. Do any of these resonate with what you're seeing at Pricing.io?
So this is the first time I've seen this list. Great work, by the way. I have 3 layers here that I want to introduce. All right. The first layer is what I'm doing at Pricing.io, and I'm seeing other pricing experts do as well. I do think that as I scan here, the value engineering one kind of annoys me a little bit because value engineering has been around for a minute. Although to your point, Stephen, how much value engineering have they actually been doing, right? But that's been around for a long time. I do think that there is a tighter connection between pricing and product. And I'm excited about that because I do think pricing is, the product of the product in many ways. And so there are folks that are, focused in on the extracting the jobs to be done and use cases with pricing and packaging, like dedicate to that. I've seen that role. Maybe it's that AI pricing product manager in the middle that I'm reacting to, but that I've actually seen come about from different companies really honing that piece in. On the next layer, there's the private equity and investors that own these companies. They're actually hiring AI advisors or AI workflow advisors to work with these SaaS companies to uncover use cases and workflows and where to apply the AI. This is where the company is maybe an established like SaaS company or software company for a while, and they're having trouble sort of unlocking and breaking open the new thinking and knowing what to do now that AI has erased the constraints and now it has let things allow us to do things we weren't able to do before. And then on the third layer on my side, where we're driving change for companies or pricing analysis, I think the biggest one I'm seeing here is mostly around the strategic element of AI. So to me, AI, if you're entering this AI space without a thought on strategy or what your direction is or the goal, you're going to really struggle because it's so amorphous. It could do so many different things. And so actually having good thought leadership on how to approach AI strategy, which will help you define how you monetize it, that upfront piece is where I'm seeing a lot of focus and where I'm helping my team as well.
Right. I'm sure Mark and Augustin have lots of comments on this, but we've only got a few minutes left. So let's go on to the next slide, Liam. So Mark, I know that you've been working. I'm going to ask Mark and Augustin this, and then Marcos can play the cleanup batter. How are what are you doing yourselves to get ready for the AI transformation in pricing. So Mark, why don't you start us off here? I know you've been thinking hard about this and doing a lot of stuff.
Okay, so first thing I want to say is, I don't know, it's a year and a half ago, I decided I was not going to use AI because I just didn't want to learn something new, and Stephen practically forced me to do this, and so I've been head first into this thing for quite a while, and all I can say is I don't think, sorry for this, Stephen, I don't think there's an AI revolution. Sorry. I think AI is a tool that we can use to do our roles better. That's it. And so the question becomes, are you going to be the last one to use this tool? So it means you don't get a job? Or are you going to lead the pack and grab these tools and use them so that you can do your job better than anybody else can possibly do your job? And so that's how I think about this. I don't think about, oh, I've got to learn AI because it's the next thing. I have to learn AI because I want to do what I do better than I've ever done it before. And that's
I,
the way I think about
I
it.
agree with you that it should have been done before. It was always there, ready to be done. However, I add to that that there is a revolution with AI on top of it, on top of it. So I'd like to reconcile points of view. I think it's really accelerate. It's making it possible to make that shift of type of activity, and the content and the value of what activity can be done now that didn't exist before is huge. So the same way that Stephen identified, 7 or 8 possible new jobs that didn't quite exist, there will be even more jobs that you and I don't even know what they are, and that's happening. That's happening. But what I love is to say what Marcos and you started to take us into, which is what we always should have done and should have done more of. And I will mention two that were on that list and one that's not on the list. Two is about governance. All of a sudden, the possibilities are stretched, the boundaries are pushed, and there's nobody out there controlling it. We used to control prices. Now we have to control rules. We have to control principles, things that we didn't need to because it was within a certain range. Now that range is being broken. You're doing things that you didn't know. Of course, everybody knows the surge story of Uber during the Paris attacks and bombs, where the prices were off the roof because nobody thought of a limit. Well, we need to set those limits in every single thing. And so that's governance. Strategy, Marcos said it very well, so I'm not going to repeat it with his own words. We need to be more strategies. We need to think about the future. We need to think about possibilities. And thirdly, which is not on the list, but probably buried out there, is what I mentioned earlier, which is scenario planning. I've always believed it, but it took months to do. Now it takes hours to do. And it allows you to think outside the box. It's another way to do strategy. It allows you to think in terms of possibilities, in terms of personas, in terms of customers, in terms of situations that you're not. And God knows if we have uncertainty these days. So if you combine all those uncertainties and can think of possibilities, then you see what's common to all the possibilities, and then you get more robust, more resilient. So that's another way. And that's a role that everybody should have, but pricing is well positioned to be. And one last thing I would like to say, stop reporting, stop doing those jobs that we've always been doing, start designing, learn how to orchestrate, think long term, and think about the next year's strategy, not the current or the past one. That would be my parting comments.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask people for a little bit more time because I do want to hear Marcos on what he's doing to help his team, and then let Liam just close us up. But Marcos, quick.
Augustin, that was a mic drop. I love that one, man. I love that. Thank you so much. Listen, I'll go back to my 11-year-old son. He had a conversation about this, and just to paraphrase, to paraphrase what he said, and we talked about, Jarvis does not replace Tony Stark, but it is his most powerful tool, right? If you think about Iron Man and how he used artificial intelligence to think of better questions, to think of what might be, think of possibilities, I think that that's how folks need to approach it. And so from my team's perspective, we're using a lot of it to take our strategic thinking and the way we help understand value exchange at its deepest level. That's where we're really using AI. And I think a lot of others need to also embrace, a more, I think, strategic nature of it, to go back to what I said earlier.
Thank you very much, guys. Liam, we're at time. You just want to close off for us.
Yeah, no, I love that Iron Man Jarvis person. Yeah, good
We
good
should
one,
reconvene that
Marcos.
panel more often, by the way. We should reconvene that panel quite often because there's a lot of richness in here.
Yeah, I was literally just thinking, what if Michael Mansard was on this, like five of you guys. Yeah, thanks so much to Augustin for joining. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've actually had you on an Ibbaka webinar yet. So yeah, it's great to hear you talk, and because yeah, I've never met you. So thank you so much, Augustin, for joining. Marcos, always a pleasure. Keep us, all three of you, updated on whatever books you guys got coming out. I know you guys said you got something writing. Stephen, myself, I think we're lacking in that department, right, Stephen?
We'll see.
Yeah.
Marcos, are you working on a new book, I believe, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
I am, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
and Mark's got two in the works. So
He beats us all.
Yeah, keep us all posted for sure. And then I know, yeah, we'll send the deck to everyone. I know it was pretty short and sweet because it was more of an open discussion this time around. 2 weeks tomorrow, Brandon Hickey, Senior Director of Monetization Strategy at LinkedIn. He's joining Stephen. The three of us will be running that same time. You guys just click that image in the deck. You can also go to ibbaka.com/webinars. You know, follow Augustin, Marcos, Mark if you haven't. I'm assuming a lot of you guys have, but anyone that's new here, please go ahead and do that. And then we got all the resources in the deck that we'll send to you as well. So thanks again, everyone.
thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys. It
you.
was fun.
Bye.
Merci.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
À la prochaine.
Merci.